Oh man, no, this is truly. I've
It's
been wanting to just like sit down and just like this is like a overdue cup of coffee. I think.
for sure. I mean, I think we've passed each other here
Yeah.
and there. I remember even, I think, or is it last year or earlier this year for sure? And yeah, it's nice to be
Last
here.
year, every time we passed each other, it's like we knew each other though, because we would both like look at each other like, hey,
I know. I think it was at the night before at the
night
of
of
the Emmys
of the
maybe.
Emmys.
Yeah, where I
Yeah.
was like, "Hey," and then I think you were like, "Hey," but then it looked like I felt like I knew you in a way, but
But I felt like I knew you too, but I knew who you were. But I was like, oh, I don't know this dude, but this dude is very warm and genuine. That's what I was just, I think I assumed it immediately. But also, I think it's because as I started to do a little, I didn't do a deep dive, but I did enough because I wanted to get to know you too. I didn't want to come in like, oh, I've researched the hell out of you. I
no,
want to,
I know. I thought about that whether
right?
I should be.
I thought,
Yeah.
well, what kind of podcast do I want to do? Do I want to like come in with research and I've, found out your childhood friends and all that stuff, or do I want to like discover in the moment? Where are you from, man?
Well, Romania originally.
Wait, what?
Yeah. Romania. I was born there, and then I left when I was 8, and then I didn't really make it into the U.S. till I was 12.
Wait a minute. So you
Yeah,
speak
Romanian.
Romanian?
Yeah, with an accent, and but yeah, still
Yep, but you have
fluent.
zero accent.
I do. Yeah. Well, now that I'm
When you,
conscious of it, but because when I came here, usually like before 12 is when you can still kids can still sort of not have an accent. It's after 12, 13 that it
I
gets
thought you were going
harder
to
and
say you're
harder.
from like East Orange or something.
No, yeah.
You're
I
from
mean,
Romania. Wow.
Romania, yeah.
Yeah, that's fantastic, man.
Yeah,
What other
and
languages do you speak?
well, Romanian, but then I spoke German for a little bit. I understand it only a little bit because my mom was a pianist, and then she was in Vienna for 4 years after before we came here. It's complicated because we got out right after the revolution and stuff, and then yeah, so I lived with her there for a while, for 4 years, but didn't really get a hold of the language as much because I was kind of learning English at the same time, and then she remarried to my stepdad, who was an American, and ended up here. Yeah,
Are you the only actor in your family?
I am also yeah, and the only child and everything. Yeah,
Wow.
um, but and where are you from?
I'm from Philadelphia.
Okay,
Born and raised in Philadelphia. I'm one of four kids. The only one who's a professional artist. They all have artistic abilities. Like my brother used to draw and paint beautifully, and my sister is a poet. And my younger brother is a musician. And so I
I
think
mean
my mother,
everyone's creative.
yeah, everyone's creative, but I think it comes from my mother who just sort of like inspired us to be creative. I think,
Amazing.
was like, she wasn't really, but I think she liked the idea of like her kids like having these musical talents or,
Yeah,
acting
and
ambitions.
do you remember? Is there a time like your earliest memory where where you were like performing when you were a kid, or even like with them, or anything like
The
that
funny
was a
thing is, I
definitive?
would always say that my older brother and older sister were much more interesting and funny than I was. I was just like the nerd. I had a sense of humor, and I think I liked to play. But I honestly, up until I think even after college, I think it surprised people that I would become an actor and do this for a living because I was very shy. I was very shy. I didn't think I was cool. I
So
didn't think it
you'd
was
say
interesting.
introverted.
Very. I still
Okay.
think of. I actually think of myself as an introvert,
Okay. Yeah.
but I'm sort of reformed because I know how to really, make
Because
it.
we
I know how
have
to
to.
make it out in these streets. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
do
We
you feel the
have
same
to.
way?
No, 100%. I'm definitely. That's why I feel like maybe we're similar in the sense because I think I mean obviously looking at your work and there's a degree of sensitivity and real sensitivity that I feel I'm always seeing in your work. So I immediately just I feel like one it takes one to know one in the sense of sensitivity. So that's the only reason I was like, oh, you're probably you I feel like you probably give a lot of energy out and then also you need to recharge in a way, which is a very how I am and
Yeah.
that's a very introverted thing. But then we have to learn how to be extroverts because of this business as
Yeah.
well. We have to be out there.
But I think you always been. First of all, you're from Romania, and being an only child, were you an observer? Just someone who just observed more than
Yeah.
as you were introverted? Because I feel like I was an observer as well. I had a speech impediment when I was a kid that also catered to it, and I just felt like I just didn't want to get picked on or bullied, so I just watched. You know,
No, yeah, and I think for me it was just honestly coming here and not really speaking the language right away. I definitely, and my stepdad was the headmaster of my middle school, like where I went to
what?
school. So like all the kids just did not want to have
Wait,
anything to
and where
do with
was
me.
this school? Where was it?
Rockland County, New York,
Okay.
across the GW. Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
exactly. I just passed through there today because I'm staying up to state right now.
and it's pretty there. Like
It's beautiful.
it's nice to, yeah, that was nice, the city. But yeah, like you, I was very insecure about like my accent or things like that. So I didn't, I guess I watched more too, but maybe that was a good thing for us. I don't
I
know.
actually realized that like all the stuff listen, now that I'm in my mid-50s, so I feel like I can say things like this. Well, I look back now and I look at all these things that I thought was like not great for me actually helped build the person that I am. I'm like, oh no, because people are like, oh, did you always have a sense of style? No, I wore my older brother and older sister's hand-me-down clothes. But I think that actually catered to me wanting to have my own style because I didn't have it. So once I got my job at McDonald's when I was 16 years old, I would buy little things and try to figure out who I was instead of just wearing something that was handed down because that's all we could afford.
Yeah.
So then I
Yeah.
became very particular about what I wear. I think so. I look back now, I'm like, oh, I think those were the seeds that were planted.
Yeah, I no, I agree with you. I mean, I'm always and this is maybe something you relate to in terms of like when you and I were talking before about like how do we find work or what do we gravitate towards or something. But I guess one of the lessons I took maybe from those experiences like you just described in childhood was that difficulty is a good thing. Like sometimes the obstacle is a good thing. The fear of can I do it or can I not do it
Or not fitting in,
yeah, like
not being perfect.
can propel change and growth, and so I think sometimes I have a problem with like comfort altogether, which
Yo,
you know what I
okay,
mean?
let's
It's like
get really
so
real.
hard.
I think you're right because I feel like when you get a little soft, I feel like it doesn't cater to the work. You need a little grit, I think.
Yeah, and like
You need
trying
a
to
little rough around the edges to get there.
yeah, and but sometimes maybe in your it's like personal life. Sometimes it's you want to find the peace and comfort to obviously be able to do that, I guess, with your work, but it's just that fine balance between like kind of like getting too comfortable and then too soft, but also just not running from one thing to the next so that you're never in the moment.
What you talking about? You're talking about the journey of like this is I guess part of what I want to talk to you about too, like about how do we make art and where does it come from for you? Like how are you drawn to the art that you're drawn to? And you're saying just in terms of what I recently watched of yours, A Different Man, which I just finished yesterday, and also The Apprentice. I don't think you can do that work without having a little danger. I think there's a little danger to your work, and I think that's what I'm attracted to because I feel like that's what I'm attracted to. I feel like it feels a little dangerous. It feels like, and I'm going to put a lot on here, and you tell me if I'm right or wrong.
No, I
feel like
appreciate it.
these relationships that you build with these directors and these filmmakers is really about taking a leap of faith. That's how you can do Pam and Tommy. That's how you can do, you know what I mean? I don't feel like I can't see you in like, maybe I'm wrong. I can't see you in like, a half-hour ABC
Oh, I mean,
television series.
we probably like you, we've done, remember
We've done everything. We've done Law and Orders.
yeah, like the rounds of going around to pilot season, and
Yeah.
like the screen,
God,
yeah,
I hated that.
I know, and that's
hated
why
that.
I also
Oh,
wanted to
such
ask
a
you, like,
whore.
I was curious how much time you had spent in New York, because when you were, right, because you,
We overlapped a little bit actually. I was in New York from 2001 to what is that? Whatever that was. I was there for 16 years, and we both worked with Liev Schreiber. Actually, I did my very first show with him, which was Henry V.
oh
Shakespeare in the
wow,
Park.
wow,
And
that's
that's what I know. I'm like, oh, we have somebody in
Yeah,
common. We have
yeah.
Liev in common. And
Yeah,
you did your first Broadway show with him.
yeah, talk radio, yeah,
Yeah.
and Henry V was before that, right? It was
Henry
two.
V was 3 years before that.
Wow. Okay.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, he's a great stage actor, but he was at the time. I was like, I don't know, because it was, I was like 21, 22, and it was intense.
Yeah.
I felt like, but it was interesting watching him, like his commitment, obviously in a way to everything. But I was just, and I mean, granted, for me at least, I had like that one cameo at the end of near the end of the play, but you were on with the
I
whole.
was no, I was the Duke of Bourbon, and so the Duke of Bourbon in Henry V is not a huge role, but also understudied the guy who did the Salic Law speech. But also, like Liev and I, we really hit it off because I think we really, I love his commitment to work. I feel like he was very much so every single day. He would I learned a lot from him, to be honest. And I moved from the Bay Area where I'd been acting for years on the stage, but coming to New York, I felt like okay, here are the folks who are doing it in New York, and Liev sort of like helped me up my game in a way when it comes to commitment because he, as the leader of our company, he was really making sure that we were all had the same brain trust. He was
Well,
like, "Hey, have you watched this documentary on this? Hey, this." He was like, he wasn't satisfied. Now, actually, like, I think it could be intense for some other people. I kind of like it. I like the fact that like, oh, we're just really working together. You know?
yeah, I mean, I felt the same way as sort of with him. The second he saw that I was really just trying to, rise up to the occasion, so to speak. He really started playing with me every night,
Yeah.
and I felt he was present, and maybe that was one important lesson I took, which is like, look, I should always surround myself with people that are better than me.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
it's like that the Tarantino quote of like being in the race and being like the last horse, and you're always, it's much better than if you're chasing than you're, when you're in a group where you're always number one. You're
Yeah.
not pushed. But by the way, both you guys have really incredible voices. I mean,
Who? Me and Leo?
yeah.
Oh
But
yeah.
you've got a real, like a strong voice. I would love to see you on stage.
Dude, you know what's funny? I haven't been on stage in like 12 years now, and I keep trying to figure out. I mean,
Would you? I mean,
I would. I feel like it's time. It's
right
time.
thing.
Time commitment, and what is the right thing? I think I'm very critical of theater, extremely critical, because also being a theater maker, I'm a playwright and a director. I'm just very critical. So when I go in, I want to be blown away. I want to be swept away every single time, and I want it to be thoughtful and mindful, and I want it to blow my mind. And I think a lot of it doesn't. And so I think, so I think that's my own personal problem. So when I do something, I'm like, oh, I want to work with someone, and anything I've ever done, the things that I'm very proud of on stage, like I did a show called Passing Strange years ago, and another one called The Scottsboro Boys, which was the final Kander and Ebb collaboration. Those were plays and musicals that were taking a leap of faith. They were dangerous. One is the framework of a deconstructed minstrel show. And the other one is a rock musical where I played all these different characters, that were, as a black man, I played a Dutch nudist. I played a closet choir director and a German performance artist, so I played all these white folks as well. That's dangerous. And so I feel like I need work that does that too. Or I want to do a classic maybe,
well, so let me segue into this because this is what you just said is really, I think, important. Like, let's just think of what you just said as it applies to Sing Sing, for instance, right? Which was such a incredible film. I was telling you before, like I had watched it and I was so like moved by the idea of that movie has so many layers, and certainly in terms of what it says about the system, but also just like us as men growing up and coming into this world and how we come in sort of like as a blank canvas, we just and seeing that image of you guys all in costume and how the innocence of it, mixed in that world and that sort of isolation, and yet that no matter what you've done or what you've gone through, we can all kind of like it. Everyone got back to that one innocent moment as a kid for me in that, and I found it made me very emotional watching it, but you get to do so many things in that film. I feel like, or we're with you in such a way, and you were incredible. But I in terms of like Shakespeare, in terms of just your character experiencing, but then coming in the acting piece of it, like was there a sense of kind of the the danger, like you were talking about, something that drew you to that project, or you saw it in there, and you know.
Yeah, because I think ultimately what you're saying, and thank you for that. I think the thing that I found that was probably the most dangerous thing when I found out more about the rehabilitation through the arts program at Sing Sing Prison is how dangerous it was to have all these feelings, to exhibit tenderness, um, to go a little bit underneath the hood and find out what makes you tick. It's very dangerous to do that because you're being very vulnerable in this very dangerous environment. And so for me, that was radical. I thought that was radical love. And I thought, and in my conversations with these men, they wouldn't necessarily tell me that that's what it was. But when they would tell me, I'm like, oh, that's what you guys were doing. You guys were really doing some soul work together. And
And a lot of these men were playing themselves.
yeah, they were playing. They were playing versions of themselves when they were on the inside.
Yeah.
And so I knew that's also a very dangerous place. These guys are coming back in to portray parts of themselves that they have left behind, that they've done some work to leave behind. And so I know that they were giving over something, and I was coming in a vulnerable state, wanting to blend in with these men, and do a little bit of sleight of hand. I thought that we were all, and also it's that people don't make films like that in a way. I feel like something about that feels like a throwback. It feels like Cassavetes or something. There's a cinema verite.
There was such a gritty rawness to the way he shot it. And I actually, when I met Greg, the director, I kept asking him about, like, so much of it felt so natural and in the moment and improvised to me that I couldn't really tell. And he had told me about some of the auditions, which were, but like incredible. But even you and Clarence, like, together, I mean, it's amazing because it has, you feel the beast in these men, and then you feel the child.
Yeah.
And, like, I just don't think we've seen, it's like, it's almost educating your mind to take in an someone that's incarcerated and to see them in that soft way in that environment is interesting. We've never seen it.
We've never seen it because we're fed so many ideas and images of who these men are, but now it's like Greg and Clint in particular, our co-writers and director, they wanted to deconstruct that and get to know the men that they've gotten a chance to know, and I'm sure the film works in that way. I think at its best, it sets up sort of these ideas, and you think it's going to lean into that trope, but then it smashes it. And so it's working on them. It's also working on the audience, having us rethink what we know about them, And so for me, that feels very. I think there's a tenderness that runs through that film that I'm very. That's the one thing I know I wanted for this film. It's very important for me to see men being tender with one another, and it has nothing to do with sexuality. I just think it's key to our well-being,
because we're not taught that way growing up.
No. We have all these things that we're fed, and we're like, why are we carrying that around? We can let that go. We can let that go if we say we let it go, and just say, like, oh, the idea of me reaching across and holding your hand is just exhibiting brotherhood and friendship and tenderness and kindness.
Did you see that movie Close?
No.
It was a foreign language film. It's amazing. You have to see it. It's like about these two young boys who just are growing up, and again, they're just the film does not sexualize anything. It's really about this intimacy that you're talking about that we just don't see enough of, and you see how they are not, because I've been thinking a lot about this with kids. How does someone become who they are? What leads to what, and then, and that's the thing with boys and men in a lot of ways, is that there's no encouragement to sort of feel your feelings, and then we sort of, we end up in therapy but
horrible relationships and things like that,
Yeah. So,
man, and I think that's the source of that film, and I think I know why you've connected with that film. Because I'm going to go to some of your work, man, because I think what I wanted to say before we even got this going was you have this beautiful vulnerability that you show. I think you bear a bit of your soul. And I think that I feel like, and I think maybe that's it. I think the thing that I knew that how we see each other is that we're doing some soul work with the work that we're doing. How else would you be able to say yes and go into the character of Donald Trump, someone who's very polarizing, but to find his humanity, which I thought was, that's always the goal. It's like, you have to, I'm going to put this on. You have to find a way to love, to respect, and look at through his lens. Because I think what I enjoyed about The Apprentice in particular, I was like, oh, I'm now looking at the making of this person, and this person who has love, need, want, desire like anybody else, wants to be loved, wants to be valued, wants success, wants the American dream. I saw all of that in your performance, and I'm like, oh, was it in the script or was it what Sebastian Stan imbued in him? You know what I mean? Because I feel like there's a certain level of, could you tell me that? Like, there's a certain level I'm sure you can research and research and research, but then there's a certain amount that you like, what do you give to the character?
Yeah, and I mean, I definitely want to come back because, as you know, with real people that you've played, it's like sometimes a real person you have like this target. At least where you're going, and you've got this like there's things to pick from, but yeah, what's your interpretation? And I think in this particular situation, it was really I think we have to remove ourselves at some point and remove our judgment and just try to see it from a human place, because I guess the goal is always to understand. And even somebody that you'd want to label, that some people have labeled as a monster or whatever, you want to. I think there's value in understanding what happens, and it's interesting. For some reason, I don't know why. Don't ask me. Sometimes I go to bed and I'm like, why am I watching this really intense thing before bed? But I like put on the Norman Mailer documentary for whatever reason last night, and he's a crazy guy.
This is at bedtime.
Yeah, and I'm like, I didn't sleep.
You're a sick man.
but he went into this thing about like the beast in all of us, so to speak. And I know it's there, and I think. I think the way to deal with these uncomfortable things, and these difficult things, is by sort of coming closer to them and bringing them into the light so that we can process them in a way, rather than pretending they don't exist. Or I'm talking, I guess it pertains to him, or any judgment towards or anybody that is controversial or as consequential as he's been or whatever. But so whenever somebody was like, why are you doing this? Why do we need a movie like this on this guy when there's so much out there already? Is because I think we have to kind of almost see, in order to get to empathy, you have to expose the opposite.
Absolutely.
Because otherwise we're, and also to know that there's a seed in all of us, if we're not careful, to fall a certain way. I think for me, coming to this country, and this thing about American dream, I always heard American dream growing up. And I've been haunted by this American dream because I came here and my mom was very much like, you're in America now, so you got to make something of yourself. You got to be somebody because now you have an opportunity, you have a chance. And, I'm sitting there and I'm taking this in, and obviously, knock on wood, I'm here with you now, and there's great possibility to the American dream in this country, what we can become and do in this country. But there's also a cost, I think, and I think I'm still sometimes wrestling with, well, when is it enough, and why is it so important that we win? Why is it so important that we?
What does winning mean?
What is winning, and what is even when it's like you get nominated or you see people, I've met people like, for instance, who won an Oscar, and they say to me, they're like, it was the worst day actually in my life or something, where they're like, suddenly, you're burdened by these certain things. So I guess I saw a lot more relatable into his story than I thought. I don't know. It's a long way of answering.
And I guess that's the way why you thought, oh, I have something to give to this character, right?
Yeah, and there's something about this that's that's foreign to me, and rather than judging it, I'm going to try to see what I can,
we're speaking the same language. That's what draws me to a lot of characters that I play. I feel like I've had a little bit of a run playing some villains, whether Zola or Mister in
Yeah.
the Color Purple, and I'm like, and people are like, "Wow, so you're a very nice guy. You seem like to be a very cool person, but why? Why do you choose these roles?" I'm like, I think they choose me, but also I feel like directors usually want me to come along on the journey, and because I'm usually curious about them, like, well, why do you think that way? Or, someone who I'm 100% a feminist, and looking at someone who traffics women, and I'm like, well, I want to get into the psychology and find out why do they do that, and what makes the, what do they want, what do they need, what's lacking in them, So for me, that maybe that's the work that we're doing. I'm like, I want to know what makes us more alike than unlike,
No, I think that's important, and I guess one of the things like I was looking forward to asking you now, because in terms of like talking about even real people and playing real people, like with Rustin, for instance, like how did you spend like a lot of time with him, and like what was that process like what how much when did you feel, because there's this element, right, where you feel like someone almost, it's as if someone's giving you a coat and you got to put it on and you hope it fits, and maybe
Yeah.
it doesn't, and then eventually it does or whatever. But was there a moment in that where you were like, I got this now? Or
I don't. Okay, I wonder if I still got it. I don't know, but I think that the moment I knew that the film was greenlit, I started my research because I need to know everything that I can possibly know for this, because this is a character that has been marginalized in history books. He's been one of my personal heroes. I can get in there and really help figure out how to make his soul sing in a way. You know what I mean? More than anything. But I knew that he had a very interesting cadence of speech. That he had. I knew I would have to wear prosthetics for my teeth, a wig, the way he moved through spaces, the way he spoke, and how he code switched all day long. How he had this weird mid-Atlantic standard accent that he created of his own. And so I wanted to get all that down in some way. And then I wanted to, I don't know, part of the process for me was like, I want to know everything around that time period, around 1963, but also 1947, where some of his backstory goes. But also, so that was maybe 5 months of research. And then I think I'm someone who likes to download a lot of information. And then I need to also then pull back at times and just say, okay, now if I actually did his accent the way he actually spoke, I think you can't get through the whole film. You're just focused on that. So I had to make some choices to dial it back and soften it and really just make it. I'm not trying to do a documentary, and I'm not trying to be beholden to the man who he was. So I didn't even have conversations with people who knew him until the very end, because I
interesting,
thought
yeah,
I have to create a character
and make it your own.
make it my own. And I feel like, well, he would never do that. He wouldn't sit like that. He wouldn't do that or whatever. I have to take dramatic license from what I know with the script, with my director, with my company, and make some decisions. And for me, and then when I felt like I was in a place, I felt like, how can I say? I think I've worked with people who have helped me in this way. One in particular, George C. Wolfe, helped me not feel like I arrived at it.
That it's always an exploration.
I'm still working.
Yeah, there's never a result.
No, it wasn't. And maybe that's it. And maybe that's the way I constantly work, which is not sort of results based. I'm like, oh no, if I can download and find these elements that works for this take and this take and this take and this coverage and everything, and then I give it over. And then I hope, by being sincere with what I know, with what I've processed, with my scene partner as well, that we've created some moments that will build into, part of this person's soul and being, I think.
Yeah.
So I never, it's strange that I maybe the answer is I never really feel like I've arrived at it.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe
It
that's
never
it. I just
happens.
don't. Yeah, right.
And maybe that's a good thing. I think it's because people. It's always an exploration, and sometimes you don't know if you're gonna get there.
I don't
You're
know.
like,
I feel like, and maybe that's it. By divorcing myself of that, I feel like, I don't know. I'm just still in this sense of play and exploration, and we'll get there. But also, I trust myself, and usually I tell, like, I just started a new job, and I literally tell the DP and the new director, I said, just know, the first 3 takes are going to be garbage. Probably.
Interesting.
I said just not, because I'm not pressuring myself to arrive at anything yet.
Yeah.
I'm still trying to figure. Oh, your camera's moving there. Okay, you're doing that. Oh, great. I'm looking at, because I respond to everything. I realize it's actually part of a gift, but it's also something that's terrifying, I respond to everything. So if there's a noise out here, my head goes this way. I don't know how to not take it in, because I feel like everything is useful. I'm like, oh yeah, that I want to use that fly that's in the scene. I can't help myself because
That's the
honest
moment.
and
That's
real.
what's on. Yeah.
And it's something that I didn't, by design, I didn't know was coming. But I trust that I've researched and I've done the work that I'm able to be available in the scene. And so, you know what I mean? And look for a bit of the divine to reside,
Yeah, and the only other thing I was going to ask you about that was more because also you as a director, right? There's also this other part of your mind, I would imagine, I would say it's like almost like a bird's eye view, probably, right? I mean, because I think the directing thing, I would imagine helps, in some way. But it's always
It does,
interesting.
but people don't understand. I feel like literally I'm thinking about this right now because I'm always standing, watching, and listening to everything, and people don't know that I am. But that's the director in me. I think that's the way I came into this industry because I came in. I don't have any formal training. I got all my training by doing and by showing up to rehearsals I wasn't even called for because I was actually like learning from everything, learning. And so for me, when I go on a set, I'm the actor saying, I want to know where the cameras are, whatever. What lens are you on? And it's not because it helps me do my job, but also want to look at the whole and what you're doing. Or, it was just my first day on a new set was yesterday, and I think they noticed that I'm listening to everything. Like,
Yeah.
and they don't know I'm listening to everything. I'm like, oh no, but I'm like, oh yeah, I've heard that. I know what's going on. I know. Okay, great. I think we're gonna have like 20-minute turnaround, right? Because you're gonna do that. I'm like, okay. But that's just maybe it's the director in me or the experience as well. But like, right?
Well, it's also probably like, remember those, I'm sure you've had those experiences where, those years where you're like on a job, when we're starting out or whatever, and you're like, you feel like you're not directed well, or you feel like, you've got to look out for yourself.
Yeah.
Like you just do. And
I've had those jobs.
yeah, you're kind of like, you're your own guardian, so to speak. Actually, Jesse Eisenberg was a Telluride, and he has this great movie, A Real Pain. That's amazing. And they interviewed him after, and he said something that stuck with me, which was, he was like, I don't measure like being an actor or a director or a writer by success. I measure it by productivity. Yeah. And he goes, I have a lot of friends who, sort of look back at this thing that was great that they did 10 years ago. He goes, I don't want to be that person. I want to always talk about the next thing, the idea of productivity, like that was it made sense to me. Cause I think it's about, you just have to kind of keep creating. And even if not all of it is always going to be, some of it has to be these swings that we have to take.
I'm going to go to the next swing then. God. A Different Man. Oh, that's a great film, man. It's beautiful. You. Yeah. I even watched the interview that you guys did at New Directors.
Yeah.
You guys just did something
recently or something.
Yeah, recently. Yeah, I saw it at newdirectors.org. I was like, making a burger last night, and I was like, let me watch this. But dude, the film knocked me out. Your co-star,
Adam Pearson.
Oh my God, he's phenomenal. You two together, it's such a formidable pairing. And just watching your eyes, watching you react, watching you take in what's happening as people are loving on him and then wanting him to take over the role, and just watching that rage come out of you. It's like, no, because you play so many notes, man. Because first of all, I'm going to give you, it's going to sound like, I don't know what it's going to sound like, but I'm going to give you two things. Because I literally told somebody this after. I said, you have this thing, your face changes a lot. And I will say, and I'm going to say this because I know that mine does the same thing. You can look absolutely handsome, leading man, gorgeous in one frame, and absolutely fucking hideous in the next. I know, yeah. It's a gift, man. No, but really, no, because I think it's something inside you that's changing. There's something that is, you're bringing out a beast, the hideous nature of humanity, and you see it all over your face. You're like, oh, look, he's a fucking monster. And you're like, oh my God, no, that's the beautiful leading man right there, Sebastian Stan. But no, you have this face that keeps changing, and you're like, I can't tell if
wait.
Which is which?
Can I tell you something to hopefully make you laugh?
What?
Apropos to what you just said, my mom, okay, I love her, but here's what she said to me recently. When she came to visit me and she was about to leave, she goes, I'm like, oh yeah, everything's great. Thank you so much. And she goes, I have to tell you something, but don't get upset. And I was like,
I love the
Mom,
setup.
all right, like,
She's a
go ahead.
comedian.
Like, what's the problem? I'm already in like an anxious place. And he goes, no, she goes, I know you're an actor and everything, but maybe you can express a little less because
Wow.
I can see these lines and they're,
She said express a little less.
she's like, get some
Get a little
moisturizer.
filler. She said get a little filler.
Oh God, no.
Wait,
Yeah,
what? She
but-
said she
yeah,
expressed a little less.
She was like, be a little less intense with your face because I'm like, Mom. But I know what you mean about the face thing. Like, I think, yeah, like I think it's a good thing for us.
I think
to
it's a
have
great thing
that.
because also your face changes in moments, and I love the camera, the way he would hold it on you, because you would just watch you. I would watch you think, and I'm like, oh my god, this guy. And there's a moment I'm not going to mention here because I don't know when this comes out or when people listen to it. I don't want to give away this one moment toward the end where I actually was like, oh, no, you did not.
Yeah, it's a crazy. That was always in the script, and I was like, oh wow, that's probably going to be fun to play. But did you caught, as a theater, having done theater, you caught all those theater things.
Well, yeah, but also this is the wildest thing, because I'm like, we're living in the same space using theater with Sing Sing and A Different Man.
Yes. Oh, yes.
There's a conceit of theater that's there, and also even the way it's shot in a bit of a cinema verite way as well. And I feel like the camera work is so fantastic, because I'm like, he's not the camera, and your director's not afraid to stay within a moment. And I was like, was that heavily rehearsed or rehearsed for camera? Because the camera was with you guys living right outside of you, and then sometimes inside. Yeah.
No, it was. I mean, Aaron Schimberg, the director, who he wrote it, and everything in there there was not one improv in that. Like, every comma, every ellipses, every word was just like him. It was so tight the way and then he had all these specific shots of, he wanted to do these long takes, and there was a lot of these dollies or steady cam. A lot of that theater stuff was
Steady,
yeah.
The steady cam, I saw it, and I was like, oh, it was so good.
And then it kept moving, and you know how it is. It's like you get one take, and then you go, that was a good take, and then you're like, well, they use that take because it's a different thing anyway. But
no, but it was so good because he knew how to. He was also framing when he would put you in the foreground, and the camera would swing around, and it was an over 3, and I was like, oh, it was beautiful, but also felt like you guys could fully be invested in the center of performance. And it wasn't like suddenly, oh, we're going to set up and now camera's going to be over that person in your face. I felt like you guys it really felt like I was watching theater.
Yeah, and you guys had that too. Because
I feel like it's very similar in that way. I was like, oh, wow. It's something that
we both have we both have a breakdown on stage.
We both have breakdowns on stage, because that's a place where you can let go of all these feelings and emotions, it seems. But I think that very much the intention of the way we were shooting with Pat Scola cinematography, he was really looking at the landscape of the human face, is what he and Greg decided on. Like, those were our big landscapes. We don't have huge set pieces. You don't get huge wides, because these are very small contained spaces. But he was like, let me go into this.
And you guys did that one quick, right?
We did it in 18 days.
Okay, so we were 22, and he was...
That was 22 days?
Yeah, and he was really scared, but 18
and
was
in New
even
York.
Crazier.
Yeah. And in the city.
In the city, yeah.
Did you guys shoot
with COVID also still.
Oh, yeah, same here. We were in COVID, too.
Yeah.
I was like, we'll never get this done. Somebody's going to get COVID.
I know.
This movie will be wrapped in 5 days.
Well, just the anxiety of, like, who's going to be next.
Dude, how did you live? I lived like a monk when I was up there. I didn't do anything. I was like, this film will go down. During COVID, I was like, I can't see anybody. I can't. Husband can't come out visit.
But maybe that helped, right? I mean,
I think so,
because you were isolated in the film as it was. So I feel like, and I'm like you in that sense. Like, I really do sometimes believe in using everything. I think every job is different, and it depends a lot on who you're working with. But I think those moments does help. I mean. My thing was, because of those prosthetics, the guy, Mike Marino, who was doing them, he had another job. So, like, and he didn't want anybody else doing it. But that meant that I sometimes had to, even though we had a later call time, I had to go to him before his other job's call time, which was earlier. And he would get me ready at like 6, and then I'd be waiting until 11, 12 to start as Edward. And so then I just like start walking around and just seeing how people responded, but the city was, it was interesting because it was all interactive. Obviously, it was a different situation. But
It was great.
I mean, Adam is I mean, such a open and courageous person. I mean, he owns himself so well,
Yeah.
and I feel like I'm 42 now, but it's but still not. I'm like, why did I even say that? But
How old is Adam? How's Adam?
no, but I was saying in the sense of like identity. I think a lot about identity, and I think even in this business, I'm sure, right? Like,
Yeah.
you have to be okay with yourself, or you have to protect your own integrity, because you got people coming at you going like, you got to do this or do that. And by the way, do you want to play another role like that? Like, there's so many things and factors, and also, even I look at like just our world today, social media and everything. It feels like there's always an attack on the self, and everyone's always being asking you to be all kinds of different things. But I guess once in a while, you meet someone like Adam Pearson, and he's like, no, this is who I am, and then you go, that's the most inspiring thing ever. So
Okay, you say there's a couple of things I want to ask you. I'm going to get all my thoughts together because I'm going to have three thoughts. But one is, you say you don't like complacency, right? And you like moving forward. Where do you find time to fill up the cup? Now, I don't know where you live. You don't have to tell me exactly where, but where do you live?
I would. No, I live in
Not your address. I'm going to
really
stalk
New
you.
York, but I've spent a lot of time in LA.
Okay, spent a lot of time in LA.
Yeah.
And do you live out in the country? Do you live out in the, I mean, because there's some country in LA too. I mean, like,
There is, but I
what
mean,
do you like city? Where do you fill up? Do you like the noise of the streets, or do you like,
I do here, honestly, here. And I don't know why that is. Like, I for some reason, every time I come here, I just go walking around and the buildings and the people. LA to me is a hard one. I think it's tough because it can be very isolating. You get up in the morning, and if you're an actor and you're not working, and I've dabbled also, like, because I also was just sitting by a phone waiting forever for the great phone call to come, and it didn't, then I'd be like, okay, maybe I should like get interested in writing or try to expand, or so I do all that stuff. But in terms of sort of like life, I find in New York here, no one, you just walk down the street and there's all people of all kinds, and they don't.
But okay, now what about the level of the fact that you're walking with? Do people stop you on the street a lot, or are you able to blend in?
Yes and no. I mean, it's gotten a little bit more, but even so, people here, like, honestly, the last couple of days has been really funny. Someone will just come and just do a fist bump, and it's like,
right?
But then occasionally there's, you'll sit out and someone's like videotaping you, and that always feels weird, right? I mean, that's always like, but I still feel, I was like, man, I'm not going to let that
Stop you from living.
Yeah, you just can't, and it doesn't really, and the other thing you lose is sort of the reality. Like, your reality is not what everyone else's reality of you is. Like, people would rather make up their own ideas of you rather than actually accept who you are.
Yeah.
And you go, okay, well, but I'm still not going to stop who I am.
Well, yeah, like, I mean, I like to ride the city bike around New York when I'm here, and people always stop, like, Colman Domingo, what are you doing on a city bike? I'm like, it's the easiest way to get around.
Person.
Being a
Yeah.
I used to live in Manhattan Plaza on 43rd and 9th when I lived here, because I lived here for 16 years. And eventually I had to move out of there because, just because.
Is that the actor building?
Yeah, they call it the home for
that
wayward
was
actors.
Yeah.
But it's a rent stabilized housing for actors and people in the performing arts. It's a really, Alicia Keys lived
No, that
there.
building's got history.
Sam Jackson used to live there. Angela Lansbury. It has great history. But I used to live there for many years, and then I moved to LA so I felt like when I was here, I needed to walk out and feel like something could happen to me. And I've moved to the stage. I'm the opposite. I like that. I live in a very sort of like quiet little area, a little isolated. I actually need the isolation to create more now. I need to wake up and just look at the ocean and be quiet.
And music's a big part, probably, of your life, right? Like music. I mean,
I think so. I mean, I love music. I mean, I feel like I come from people who just really, just admire musicians. I really think being a musician is probably one of the greatest things in the world. People who can create something out of nothing and with instruments and sound and voice. They're my heroes. So yeah, I love, I'm a music aficionado. So much. I had a dance party last night. This is what I do. I had a dance party last night because I'm like, yeah, I'm done work for the week. I turned on some, because Frankie Beverly, the legendary Frankie Beverly, passed away. So I was like, I decided to put together a Frankie Beverly playlist, and I gave myself a dance party last night. I made a margarita, and I turned up the music. I have this house on the lake that I'm staying in, and I just turned up the music super loud and had a full dance party for like an hour, sweating and dripping.
oh man, that
So
sounds like a lot of
I don't
fun.
need to go out to the club anymore. I can make my own club now.
No, exactly. Yeah, I think that
Are you in the club?
no, it's those days are done. Those days are, and I mean, and that's maybe that part of New York I don't experience anymore. I actually was asking somebody before we started. I'm like, where does everyone go on Friday night? Because I'm like, I'm just curious. But
What time are you usually in bed?
oh man, I mean, these days it's like a 10:30.
Dude, that's late for me. I'm like 9:30.
Really?
Dude, I'm a 9:30 bedtime.
But
person.
are you a morning person?
Yeah, I love morning.
Yeah,
I love
me
getting
too.
up at 5:30 in the morning.
By the way, to me, the greatest LA's ever is between like 5:30 and 11
It
a.m.
absolutely is.
It's like
It's quiet.
yeah.
It's beautiful. You're watching the fog, dissipate, and it's such a beautiful place at that time.
It's always funny with me, for me with the sun in LA, because sometimes you're like, I love a good cloudy day.
Absolutely. Now, going back to that, flying out to LA, what were the jobs that you were like really trying to get early in your career? Were you like,
Oh man, I was trying to, and I mean, I remember getting close to movies like Jarhead and like, I don't know, I mean, definitely some of the, Star Trek and like a bunch.
yeah, I
mean,
wanted to get a job on like the CW or something like that.
and
or like-
CW, yeah,
like
CW,
anything-
all these pilots.
right,
Oh,
right. Lots of pilots.
The OC, I think I tried
yeah.
out, didn't get that. That was a bummer. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it was just you just try to get
You're trying to
something
get a gig.
work.
What did you do for part-time work?
I worked in catering and
Same here.
Yeah, it was like $20 an hour. So we would do weddings and like everything, events. And that was in New York.
That was in New York.
Okay, I worked for a company called Metropolitan Catering.
Wait, I worked with them for a minute.
Did you?
Dude, yeah.
Yeah, that was when I got out of school in 2005. So
Dude, what if
yeah,
we worked a shift together?
that would
hilarious.
be ridiculous.
Dude, that's wild. I used to do one of my part-time gigs was I used to be a dancer for bar mitzvahs.
That's incredible.
It was a great job.
Where there is footage of that, obviously.
Somebody has it. Someone's bubby has images of me dancing and getting the party started with like
amazing.
Mrs. Bernstein. I was like, come on, let's get up and.
But bar mitzvahs were fun, right? Like I was like,
dude, bar mitzvahs are
the best.
but also the money that's spent. It's like better than some weddings.
I know. I worked a few of them, and then I'd been to a few of them, like just growing up, But I always thought, I'm like, wow, like what a
You never
great
thought
party.
about who those dancers were, like that
Now,
like that skinny black guy. You were like, what's he doing here? But he's getting the party started.
exactly.
That was me, and I got paid a lot.
That's
Some
amazing.
good money
That's
and good tips too.
Yeah, I mean that was a way to, get started. And when did you do Law and Order?
When did I do Law and Order? I did Law and Order 3 times. The first one was playing a schizophrenic heroin addict on Law and Order Criminal Intent, but also did Law and Order with Sam Watterson. That was.
Yeah.
I was one of the last people I felt like getting a job on Law and Order. That was the job that I just couldn't get for some reason. I felt like, I'm not an actor worth my grain of salt.
It's just so funny with Law and Order.
I felt
yeah.
like I suck if I'm not getting a job on this. But then I got one, and Sam Watterson gave me the greatest compliment I think anyone to this day has given me. He said, I had a scene with Dennis Bukateris. I play a young lawyer, and he was like, Sam Watterson was like, who does he remind you of? And I was like, listen, I was like, who's he going to think? Someone that doesn't make sense to me. And he said, listen to his voice. Who does he sound like? And then I said, I hear what you're saying. And then Sam says, "You know who you remind me of? A young Peter Fonda." I was like, "What?" And that was such a great compliment.
Wow.
Because, I thought it was going to be like something like Chris Rock or something like that. Now, I respect Chris, but I'm like, we're very different actors. Yeah,
Right.
you know what I mean?
Of
You know what I mean?
course.
But I'm like, a young Peter Fonda. I was like, oh, Sam was able to hear something and see something that was outside of the container that I'm in, which made me feel really good.
That's awesome.
Yeah. What about your Law and Order? Who did you play?
I was with Ty Burrell. He played my father, and we were like father-son sniper killers. Wow. Yeah, it was the only, and Sam Waterston was on it, and it was Jesse L. Martin and Jerry Orbach.
Oh the great Jerry Orbach.
Yeah, and it was like I was still in school when it happened, and it was a whole thing with Rutgers like letting me out.
You went to Rutgers?
I did, yeah, Mason's Road School of the Arts.
Man, yeah, good school.
Did you ever meet Bill Esper or any? Or
I never met Bill Esper, but he's very famed. So yeah, I never met him though. Yeah.
Oh, and Israel Hicks is who we.
Israel
had.
Hicks, another great famed.
Yeah, and he actually gave us like the best advice ever, which was like, you bring your day to work. You bring your day to the audition. It's like it always stuck with me because like everything in you when you're a young actor or whatever, and you're going up to that room or whatever, you want to impress, you want the approval, you want to come in there and be nice, be cordial, whatever, and maybe something happens on the way. You spill coffee, somebody bumps into you, or you fall or whatever, you're late, and so like come in there with that truth, and it will be more than, don't put on that thing, just let it be the moment. And
do you bring that into meetings that you have? Do you bring in your day? Do you like?
I do now, actually.
You do?
I do. Yeah, I'm still. Yeah, I'm always like, yeah, no, got this call today, and I think it's okay to do that. I feel like
it is. I think you're right. It's funny. I think when it comes to meetings, like I'm really funny with meetings because I feel like I dress down. I sort of like. I will like sit in a meeting at like a big studio and I would sort of lay out a little bit because I want to make sure. And I think I realize it's for myself to be very comfortable because I feel like it's set up for me to be like, oh, should I be nervous? And I'm like, I'm going to go the opposite. I'm not going to dress up for them. Usually I wear all black. I look like a New Yorker.
Yeah.
In these big LA meetings. And I sit there and I'm like, but also I like to always think, and I say to myself, there's nothing that I need from you. I actually walk in the room saying that there's nothing I need here. What I can is give, and you can give, and we can have an offering and a sharing together. And for me, it's not even about the job. I always think like if I walk out of here and we can be good colleagues, and I can see you and we can talk about your kid, that's awesome. But it actually isn't about the job. And I always try to tell young actors that too. Like I think it's important to walk in with a sense of not needing anything because you can't book from that. You can book from just being a grounded person and a curious person and interested and interesting.
No, exactly. I mean, I remember I had a producer one time, it was like a studio executive also, that said, sometimes I'm just like looking to see if if when we're shooting 100 miles away from here, all the way in like,
am I going to like that dude?
Are we going to get along?
Yeah.
Are we going to be able to go to dinner and like sit down and get along? And that's the thing about like maybe why it is good to, LA and kind of wherever that home is, because we really are far away when it happens, and you go away with this group of people and you have this internal experience, and it might as well just be worth it.
Yeah, it's true. I think, listen, I feel like I've said this before, and I really do mean it. I really want to work with, especially now, I feel like, listen, I'm 54 years old, turning 55. And I feel like I just want to continue to work with people I'm going to love. And it may sound like very, very much like a Pollyanna in some way, but I'm like, this life is too short, man. I just want to go in and we're going to are we going to have a good time and get along and really treat each other in a lovely way and have some laughs. I don't want to be stressed. Anything that's like I know how to let go of things that are not unhealthy. I don't, like my whole life is I have ease in my life. And I think I've designed my whole life to have ease so I can walk into the room and feel love and grace.
Yeah.
But man, there's a lot of other folks in here that are not coming from that place. And I'm like, I don't want any of that. So I'm very clear about like saying, oh no, that's not useful. That's not going to work unless we're going to come together in this other place, which I think is you can actually build from and create from,
Yeah, trust, right?
Yeah.
Because I think if we have that trust, we can kind of go anywhere.
Yeah.
In that moment. And
But you can't be looking over your shoulder, right?
no. I remember being younger and people wanting, even looking for that kind of drama, right? Like,
Oh, yeah.
in your
Let's
own
try to
life, and
create
like,
it.
yeah, and just to feel everything, but I realized I've had better results with actors that I worked with where I was like, before we were like, we're good, and then you can go to these places, but yeah.
I have some very small questions for you too. Like, this is going to sound like the actor studio.
I know.
It's gonna
That
sound
was fun. I used to watch that a lot.
I used to watch it all the time. Actually, had it done to me too. By the way,
Really?
James Lipton came on stage after Passing Strangers that I did on Broadway because he knew Issa Davis, my co-star.
Wow.
And she said, "Would you like him to ask the questions?" And
Yeah,
we said,
no way.
"Absolutely."
That's hilarious. What's your favorite curse word?
Yeah, what's your favorite curse word? What's your
What did you
favorite
say?
sound? What did I say? I think my favorite sound was like, my mother's voice. I think my favorite curse word was motherfucker. What's yours?
I mean, fuck. It's
said
always,
fuck a lot?
I mean, I guess, that.
What's your favorite sound?
My favorite sound? Oh, man. It might be that quiet in between at 6 a.m. LA time, when everything else is still waking up. That's a pretty good sound.
And if there's a heaven.
I forgot.
Remember that one? That was the best one.
Oh,
If there's a heaven, what would you, when you were entering the pearly gates, what would you want God to say? Sebastian Stan.
Oh God, I would probably say, him to say, or her to say,
Or they to say.
or they, or just you did your best. You did your best. I think that. What about you?
I would say, come on in, motherfucker.
There's a margarita, and there's
And he's got a margarita for me, and he's playing Frankie. And Frankie Beverly's there singing.
Of course.
That's exactly. I need it to be a full event like that. I like to
man.
listen. I think I like to. I told someone recently. I said, I don't want to. If I do go out, I don't want to be at the party. I want to be the party. That's why I love hosting. I love having people over because I love to have a good time and just curate the whole event. I think that's where I find most of my joy.
Well, I mean, I also just think that's how, when you really meet people, and I feel even in this business, I mean, I feel I've connected with people in more in environments like that than I have in a meeting or in an office. It's like, and I always think of like the great parties that used to be, like that I would imagine, of the old days, like Truman Capote or something, or, just like the.
Do you throw parties?
No, I'm not a really like I'm not that good at like party throw. I'm too I try to manage everything. I'm too worried at is everyone having a good time or whatever. But I do like getting on the Spotify if need
Okay,
be.
so you can mix it up on the Spotify.
A little bit, like I feel like I could. I wish I would have tried being just for me, just for fun, like the DJing thing, just for a little bit, because I think there's something.
Well, maybe that's your place at the party. You're like, I'm going to just curate this.
Yeah, it's fun, kind of guessing and seeing the energy, and then just putting one thing and seeing that shift,
Seeing what happens.
and everyone's
Seeing
like, oh,
hey,
okay,
they throw hands
we've
up.
just moved up, we've moved up,
Or they look at you, they're like, oh, that sucks. You brought it down.
or that, oh yeah. Which,
Listen, next time you're in LA and Natasha Leone is back in LA,
and she's lovely.
she and I throw parties together.
Oh, that's amazing.
We
No
threw a New Year's
way.
Eve party where I DJ'd, and I got a little shy, but I had to turn it out because Questlove walked in the door, and I'm like, okay,
Oh
no,
my
I can't let him.
God.
I can't get off my game. So we threw a New Year's Eve party. But we throw these parties in LA together that are just about bringing artists together. It's like sort of old school salon. I feel like it's like
I think that's great.
the league of like Truman Capote and things. But like, because we realized somebody's got to have them, and we started to curate them together. She's like, hey, Colman, should we have a party this weekend? I'm like, sure. She'll put out some little flyer. I don't even know what the flyer says. It's kind of weird and, artistic and a little something salacious. And she'll just like put it out. Yeah, and party at my house.
Definitely
And we always
coming.
promise that there's going to be an orgy. It's always a joke. But I've had some people call me and just like, hey, so
That's
is
there's
really gonna
LA.
be an orgy? You're like, no, it's a joke. Because she's like, bring something to wear in the pool or not, so we can get this orgy popping.
But it would be funny if somebody actually did show up, going like,
Ready for the
"Wait."
orgy? We're like, no,
Yeah, what
that's not,
happened?
we're gonna wrap this up. But well, I guess talking about orgies is a good place to wrap it up. I guess.
Hey, listen, it's we're all we're all doing our best.
I'm sure somebody would like to hear that in the middle of an orgy. I'm just doing my best. And could you imagine that person?
Yeah, actually, the other thing, like, I don't know if you ever met, Anthony Mackie. He's like,
Oh, yeah, he's cool. Yeah.
He and I have always a funny thing. We have a whole thing that we always say to each other. Hey, man, we're just trying to stay alive. That's it.
Dude,
But
we're just trying to stay alive.
exactly,
So we'll wrap this up with that, I guess, right? With that, we're just trying to stay alive.
do our best.
That'll close us out. Thanks, man. It's good talking to you,
Man,
man.
it's such a pleasure. I'm so happy we got to connect.
Me too. They're coming to get us. All right. Thank you.